Hello and welcome to My Green Pets. This was the image that I was greeted with this morning when I came downstairs, and I thought, gosh, isn't that beautiful? That calla lily that I cut yesterday from the garden looks wonderful on the kitchen table silhouetted in front of the window. Today began with a little tour around the sunroom. There's still several plants, many of orchids that are in there, and I like to check on them every day. This is a miniature Phalaenopsis that was purchased on sale for only 50 cents a few years ago, and this is the first time it's bloomed, but I'm really pleased with it. It's so nice. Just love that little plant. This is also bromeliad season. This is Echmea fasciata, and it is starting to push up its big pink bract that will last upwards of 5 or 6 months. Looking forward to that. And finally, we've got this beautiful little slipper orchid that we've been waiting for. It's called Paphiopedilum annabelschen, and even though the light's quite bright here, you can see it's got a wonderful pink color and just a puffiness to it. It's quite beautiful. Last week I did not produce an episode of this series because I was on a trip. I was traveling, and I had the chance to visit another orchid grower, and he had quite an interesting setup here. His greenhouse was 2 stories tall, and he had scaffolding. He could walk up in the back, and he could have plants at different levels. You can see he's got lots and lots of orchids. I went around and just we spoke, we talked about some of the different plants that he had, and of course he showed me the ones that were in bloom, and I find myself wondering if a greenhouse is more trouble than it's worth, or worth the trouble. I don't know, but certainly walking around and seeing all these blooms made me think, gosh, it's certainly a wonderful thing to have a space where you can grow all your orchids all the time. Back to my green pets, my smaller, much smaller collection. Many of the plants are outside in a shade tent, and so they're exposed completely to the elements, the rain, the sun, the wind, and the bugs. And we noticed last week that, in fact, we have a little mascot here, and I'd be interested if you have an idea for a name for this little guy. Why don't you write it down there in the comments, because he's been hanging around there since the beginning of May, and he might be out there in the shade house the whole summer. Over on the shade table, the slipper orchids and some of the Phalaenopsis are starting to really put out growth. They're really showing that it's summer and the flowering season is done and it's time to grow. This is a Paphiopedilum villosum, and it is really pretty. It's a tree-dwelling slipper orchid, and it has new growth there. And this is Michael Kopovich. You may remember this from last Christmas when it had these big, beautiful flowers with 16-inch petals. It's also out there growing this summer. And then we got another orchid here that's a first bloom seedling. This is the Vanda falcata, also used to be known as the Neophoenicia. And it's got a couple little buds on it. And finally we've got Maxillariella tenuifolia here. It's in its 4th week of bloom so far. And when you walk past it, you just get this wonderful fragrance of sweet coconut. For the past few weeks, we've been looking at this Bulbophyllum echinolabium, trying to decide if these new green things were growths or spikes, but in fact they are new growths, no spikes to speak of. Another Bulbophyllum, Lovely Elizabeth, is showing signs of growth. It just completed this newest pseudobulb a couple months ago, and now it's putting out another one. Let's head over to the Vanda tree, where Vanda Pichara Delight has started to put out its spikes for the summer. And if we look closely, we can get a count of how many spikes we've got. We've got 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, little bitty one coming out there, and 6. So we've got 6 spikes on this Vanda, so it's going to be really quite beautiful in the next couple months when all those bloom out. I've also got a couple more little Vandas. in another part of the tree. Well, that's all for this week's update. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time right here on My Green Pets.